Mahomes at bay.
The Tampa Bay Bucs, Super Bowl 55.
Hello and welcome to the Bucs Banter podcast. We've got lots of storylines and happenings in the NFL world to address this evening. We've got a new crop of Pro Football Hall of Fame inductees to discuss, including a former Super Bowl champion and Tampa Bay Buccaneer. We've got training camps in full swing as all teams are ramping up in anticipation for the start of the 2021 NFL season. We'll be checking in with Joshua Cole Allen of the Pewter Report to get some of his observations from Bucs training camp specifically. We've even got the first Buccaneers preseason game to preview as Tampa will be welcoming the Cincinnati Bengals into Raymond James Stadium this upcoming Saturday night. That is August 14th, less than 1 week from today. So things are moving along quickly in the NFL offseason, and we'll be doing our best to address these storylines tonight on the Bucs Banter podcast, coming at you live on Bucs Report. We'll be doing this not only for you, but with you, as we expect plenty of input from all of our viewers this evening. Whether you're with us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, doesn't matter. Hit us up in the comments, and we will do our best to address any of your takes, questions, whatever it is you bring to the table. I am your host, Colin Hallboom, and as always, I am joined by my two Hall of Fame-worthy co-hosts. First, we've got our savvy veteran who can play both sides of the microphone. He's dynamic yet disciplined. He's slick, but he'll still catch you on the chin if you're slipping. The Charles Woodson of the Bucs Banter podcast, we have Bodan Yard. And on the other side, we've got a polished technician in terms of his sarcastic wit. A guy who's more than likely going to go off script and yell Idaho at the line of scrimmage. His dad was also a quarterback. In reality, he may be more of an Eli, but for the sake of this Hall of Fame-themed introduction, we'll consider him our Peyton Manning. Yes, I am talking about our very own Scott Capron.
Oh, well, thank you, man. That's, a lot of those things I think are just synonyms for calling me a dick. But either way, I appreciate it. So thanks.
You're really dialed in on the player comps. I really like it.
Yeah,
because
no kidding.
A lot of people go, they look at me and they're just like, "Oh, that's Megatron," but I'm much more of a Charles Woodson.
Yeah, I'm glad you appreciate that.
I saw that. I was assuming you were going, Bo, with that first intro, but then the Charles Woodson thing. I was like, are you going with the Michigan connection? I was still holding out, but hey, we'll take it. Well, Bo deserves it. He deserves it
for sure. I mean, you can't really be complaining. I just called you Peyton Manning of this podcast. So
well, yeah, Woodson won the Heisman, so here we go.
Yeah. We are expected to be joined by Joshua Cole Allen, but he's actually out of power at the moment, and he said, it's hurricane season, so these things happen. We're hoping we'll have him back up. He's expected to join us around 7:30. We'll see. If he's not able to, then we will make do and find other things to discuss. I do want to just sort of start off by acknowledging the fact that Buccaneer great, current general manager of the San Francisco 49ers, John Lynch, has officially been inducted into the Hall of Fame. Lynch joins Tony Dungy, Derek Brooks, and Warren Sapp to become the fourth member of that iconic Buccaneers team from the late 90s, early 20s, the feared defense, the Tampa 2. That brought Tampa its first Lombardi trophy in 2002. So he joins them in the Hall of Fame, which is a pretty big accomplishment. I mean, the only other thing I want to say before just talking a little bit more about Lynch is, if Rondé Barber is not the next Buck to enter the Hall, then I'm really going to stir shit up in Canton. I'm talking vandalism, like defamation of ancient artifacts. Like, I don't care, whatever it takes, really, because that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's a shame he's not in already.
Yeah, for sure. That was so funny you said that. I was just about to say, who's your next guy in now that Lynch deservedly gets in there? Who would you have? Yeah, Rondé. That makes sense.
And I mean, much to the displeasure of many viewers, I wouldn't have said James Wilder. I would have said Rondé Barber still. But we're not talking Bucs Ring of Honor tonight. We're talking about the real thing, the Hall of Fame. John Lynch, I mean, that dude was struck fear into the eyes of opponents, just an absolute thumper on the back end.
Yeah,
I think
awesome.
his instincts and mentality, I feel, are what really carried John Lynch to be the great player he was. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't the fastest guy on the field necessarily, but certainly fast enough. So Clark Drew joins us on Facebook. Congratulations to John Lynch on your induction to the 2021 Hall of Fame, but just in a different order. He said it right. I didn't.
John Lynch was always one of those the guys who absolutely dismantle someone but show no emotion. Always really scared me. You know,
Yeah.
like, wow, do you recognize what you did? Do you just not care? Is it so routine for you? Just making someone pass out that it doesn't even elicit an emotion for you anymore. That one of those. I would throw Polamalu in that category as well. It was just so routine for those guys. But what a career! What a great player to watch. And we'll see if maybe he can duplicate it as an executive here.
He's doing a good job so far. That's for sure. He's done a great job. And you're right.
I don't know if you've heard, but he went to Stanford. I know it does not come up very often for those Stanford guys. So, just throwing that out there. Yeah.
And did Ryan Fitzpatrick go to Harvard? Did I hear that somewhere?
He did. And, really good score on the Wonderlic test. I think we're actually breaking that news. It hadn't been mentioned before. Also, Richard Sherman, Stanford. And another one is Matthew Stafford played on the same soccer team as Clayton Kershaw. Not many people know that. So
wasn't it baseball?
I know it was a soccer team.
Oh, see, I guess maybe I didn't know that. I thought it was baseball.
Okay.
I feel like they leave out the Richard Sherman went to Stanford part on all the stories that are coming out about him lately, though.
Recently.
Yeah, all of a sudden that's forgotten.
It's just an afterthought.
But when he was just a dick and not a potential criminal, then they still drop the Stanford thing quite a bit. But we'll wonder if they leave that precursor out coming up here.
Yeah.
Keith Robbins Jr. on Facebook. What's up, guys? What's going on, Keith? Thank you for joining us. We're just currently praising John Lynch and his style of play. Scott, what you said about he just kind of did it. It's like because he expected to. Like he just expected to hit dudes so hard in the mouth that they were gonna remember it. Barry Sanders today, actually, or over the weekend anyway, made a comment just talking about how impactful John Lynch was and how he was always in your head knowing he was back there, right? You make it into the second level. It's not like you're running home free from there when you got John Lynch patrolling the back end of a defense.
No.
Usually your running back thinks you're basically done. All the work is done once you get to the second level. But John Lynch is definitely one of those guys where it's just like he's done all of the work, so he just expects it to happen. Right?
Yeah.
So
And you got to be a special kind of personality to fit in and be accepted right away by Warren Sapp. Like, I feel like when Sapp loves you, like, you know what I mean, and how you play, like, you must be one mean SOB.
Yeah.
Totally.
No, good barometer for sure. No kidding.
Yeah, Christopher Cole says when he met Lynch at training camp one year, he said, dang, he's tall. So,
really?
Doesn't look
I
tall.
did not expect that. Yeah.
So, unless he's being sarcastic, that's very interesting. I don't know what he's looking at.
Yeah, there you go.
Cade on YouTube. Cade says, you guys ready for that first game? I don't know if you're talking the preseason game. I'm certainly ready for that Thursday nighter to kick off the NFL season versus the Dallas Cowboys. We talked about that on our last podcast. But we are going to talk about, we're going to preview that Cincinnati game, that first preseason game a little bit. We're going to talk about it. Keith Robbins comes back with a Rondé is next and then Rice. I love that. I would love to see Simeon Rice get there. I think Rondé Barber needs to get there. Like, that's the sort of thing that's keeping me up at night. But yeah, Simeon Rice, certainly we've covered his when we did our pick the all-time Bucs defense.
Yeah.
We dug into Simeon Rice's production, not just as a Buck, but even like when he was with the Cardinals. Like, he came into the league putting in work right away.
I'd have to double check, but I feel like he's borderline.
He's right on that.
But yeah, I know he was just kind of saying what the order would be. But yeah, hey, more the merrier. If Simeon can get in there, that'd be amazing.
For sure. And it's quite a class of Hall of Fame inductees. I mean, you got Drew Pearson, the old Cowboys receiver, and the NFL draft legend. Like, that dude is a legend to me just for when he announced that Cowboys pick in Philly. Was it in Philly or New York? I forget.
Can't remember.
I think it was Philly.
I can't remember either.
But that guy's a legend. Alan Faneca, we all remember Alan Faneca, the offensive guard for the Steelers. That dude was just a mean, angry dude, and that's what you want from your offensive guard. Not necessarily. You don't have to be mean, as Tristan Wirfs has proven. who apparently
just have to maul dudes.
Yeah, but apparently Tristan Wirfs is just handling these dynamic defensive ends we have in training camp too. I want to ask Joshua Cole Allen about that, but like people are at the point where they're criticizing Shaq Barrett and JPP for not being like effective enough, and I think someone said today, I might have been John Ledyard writing an article for the Pewter Report, but just saying, well, no, it's just Tristan Wirfs is that good.
Yeah,
that's so promising. Like that is such a good sign. You know what I mean? Like he's going up against some of the best guys in the entire league, and he's doing that. Like, oh my, just for him to take that next step, and it looks. Hey, and there's no better way than playing against the best in practice, right? I know it's a cliche, but seriously, any better way to get ready for this season? That's awesome. That's so good to hear.
And maybe we're not acknowledging the fact that goes both ways. And like even for JPP and Shaq Barrett, maybe they're preparing the best way they can going up against a guy like that. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah.
Despite his age, if you're that good, you're that good. And Tristan Wirfs is that good.
No kidding. And just because he's on their team doesn't mean they're not competing. Like, let's go. I don't think Shaq Barrett or JPP want anything out there that they're not performing as well as they can, even if it is at the benefit of their own teammate, right? Like they're on the other side of the ball. It's a whole different thing.
For sure.
Yeah.
Keith Robbins Jr. Does anyone else on that defense deserve a Hall of Fame induction? So outside of Simeon Rice being borderline, and obviously Rondé Barber needs to be in it for the 5th time during this show already, I'll say. No one jumps out at me as being a Hall of Famer from the time with that defense. I think Simeon Rice would be on the borderline, and think of how great he was. So
I wouldn't be shocked if Simeon Rice didn't get it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. Unfortunate, but that is the case. And then Christopher Cole on Facebook follows up, says he doesn't look it on TV, but he is in fact tall. So that's interesting.
I just looked it up. John Lynch, 6'2".
Yeah, wow.
Same height as Jimmy Garoppolo. Like his comparables come up: Peyton Manning, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Derek Brooks.
Wow.
So,
like, could have been a linebacker.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's for sure.
6'2". Wow.
Like he would be a linebacker if he was playing now, don't you think? Like you need linebackers need to be able to cover to some extent.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Still,
maybe those seem to be like our favorite linebackers are the guys who play safety, like our guy JOK in Cleveland, right?
Yeah, I mean, whoever's watching the show right now, let us know. Do you think if John Lynch was in the league right now, do you think he would be employed as a linebacker, or do you think he'd be a safety? Really curious to hear from some of you Bucs fans who have watched his entire career. I mean, a couple of the other guys I mentioned, Faneca and Pearson, obviously Calvin Johnson, who is, in my opinion, the best receiver I've ever watched play the game when you're talking about just talent at that position. I understand Randy Moss, and I watched the tail end of Jerry Rice's career, and he's a different kind of receiver, and I would never dispute his greatness in the pantheon of wide receivers in terms of production and accomplishments. However, if we are just saying the most talented wide receiver that I have ever seen with my eyes, it is Calvin Johnson, and it's not very hard for me to arrive at that conclusion.
That makes our age show, right? That's when I think of Calvin Johnson, I think of LeBron James, basically. Like that's the comparison. So Jerry Rice is probably MJ, and then Randy Moss is probably KD or something like that. And they're 3 unbelievable players. You could probably never touch what they're going to do to the game, but they're all great in the way that they play. And but my preference too is for LeBron. It's for the Calvin Johnsons because it's so impactful the way that he plays the game. Like the picture's been up all over Twitter. It basically looks like they're covering a punt when he lines up on the red zone.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
The 2 guys on him, it's insane.
I know, and I think we've talked about it before, but just imagine him in a different situation with some other weapons around him, you know? Or if him and Barry played together, like 2 of the coolest players at their respective positions all time. Between him and Barry Sanders happen to be in the Motor City.
Yeah.
Burning oil, burning that midnight oil, eh, boys?
For sure. John, just incredible, unbelievable career. What else can you say that, you guys have already said? My favorite guy to watch, I mean, hard to dispute Rice's production, and especially he's playing in a time when, there's basically the WWE and you could do whatever the hell you wanted, right? Yeah. So a little bit different, obviously, but just Sundays watching, it's like, try not to watch the Lions whenever possible, but, you flip over and he just caught a poorly thrown fade in the end zone with one hand. Like, just how many times did you see that? And not just the flash, but also just the across the board production for his career. He was amazing. And like, respect for him for knowing his body and deciding to get out when he did. Like, I selfishly would have, like everyone, would have liked to see him play more and throw up a few more, 1,500-yard seasons with 10 touchdowns and see where that puts him all time. But good for him. And look, he's in the Hall of Fame. So was able to do that, was able to accomplish that despite the relative lack of seasons and games played. So, yeah, Megatron, you're the best, and you have my heart, quite frankly.
Really says something about that Lions organization, right? To lose Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson way before they were really done, or where you would expect them to be done, right? Like, best decision for them body-wise and health-wise and moving forward in football. But yeah, I saw Calvin Johnson. I think he's on the Pat McAfee show, just talking about his time in Detroit and how he's still, like, it's still some unresolved issues there. He still has issues with the front office or the ownership group or whoever it is that he's had a issue with in Detroit, but that's still very much a real thing for them. And yeah, it's horrible to see that's the way that his legacy is kind of was defined up until this point, because people obviously knew he was going to be a Hall of Famer, but just to see him put on the gold jacket is just a whole nother level to that, right? So
the Sanders and Johnson retiring early thing just to get out of the Lions organization is like truly as big an indictment on our franchise as there could be, right? Like, like not even asking for it, like, we're just done. Like, we're just absolutely done. Oh, my dog just walked in. Hello, Autumn. You want to chime in on the Calvin Johnson scenario? Good. Huge fan. More of a Julio girl, but fair enough.
Should have named her Miss Megatron or something.
Well, it made the short list, but it got nixed.
Keith Robbins Jr. on Facebook with a good question. He says, "Who's your favorite guy to watch this season?" And because we're talking about Calvin, I assume you're focusing on the wide receiver position. And that's a good question. I mean, for me, like two Buccaneers, I'll step outside the Bucs, but first and foremost, like Mike Evans, I think is going to have a big year. But Antonio Brown is a guy I'm really anxious to see this year. Bruce Arians just came out, I think, today and said that he looks like the AB from 4 to 5 years ago. I guess that knee procedure has him feeling fresh and frisky running routes on these Buccaneer DBs in practice. That is a scary concept for any opposing defense to have to worry about if AB returns to that kind of form. And it would make sense. Like, it doesn't necessarily seem like hyperbole. Physically, if he's healthy, I think he's still got the juice in his legs.
If he's that guy, he's the best wide receiver on the team. Like, that's insane. If you really think about that, what he did in Pittsburgh, like, that's the best. That's easily, and not easily because Mike Evans is still there, Chris Godwin's still there, but that's an impossible task for a defense.
For sure. Now, outside of Mike Evans, or Mike Evans or AB, a couple guys, 3 names, 3 young receivers. I'm really curious to see. I want to see Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, see if he can continue the standard he set as a rookie last year.
Yeah.
And then his former college teammate Jamar Chase. Anyone who's watched this knows how big of a booster I am for Jamar Chase. You'd think I paid his tuition at LSU. But that's a guy I think.
Don't worry, that got handled for him.
Right, exactly. Well, I was making a play on the term booster. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Touche.
I think Jamar Chase is going to be dynamic right away, and they got a great receiving core there. We'll see if they can keep Joey Burrow upright. And then CeeDee Lamb, another young receiver. We'll see if he kind of takes control of that receiving corps and becomes the number 1 receiving option in Dallas. He's certainly got the talent, and he's a guy I was high on entering the draft. Again, we talked about that on a recent podcast, so I don't want to get into it too much, but those are some guys for me. I don't know if there's anyone else you guys have in mind who's the receiver you're most looking forward to watching this season.
I want to see another level from DK Metcalf really badly. I just want to see if he can just go up another level to what he did last year. And then the other side of it, just vindictive part of me wants to see Devontae Adams outperform what he did as well, and just stick it into the Packers even more to be like, okay, you guys, you have to pay me too now too. So yeah, those would be the 2 ones that stick out for me.
Those are great. I'm just not a huge Metcalf guy. I don't know what to. I don't really have any. I don't know what to say about it. Like, he's a freak and he does these insane things.
Yeah.
But like as a receiver, is he really the guy you want as your number one guy? But then Seattle's offense is always kind of weird and it's scrambly and right. So maybe he's perfect for that. I like him. I like watching him. Don't get me wrong. And he like the stuff he can do is incredible. But he's kind of meh for me, even despite the fact that he's such a supernatural athlete. But I totally understand where you're coming from, Bo. I'll throw one out. Calvin Ridley is just so good. He's so good, and he's been productive even on a team with Julio Jones since he came to the league. Not productive, like extremely productive, and he's going to be the number one guy there in an offense that likes to throw the ball. So let's see what he can do. He's one of the receivers I really want to see just to see if he can take that next step as a number one option, because that's a huge difference, right? Like it just is, and I think he has it. I think he has it in him for sure.
Yeah, the DK Metcalf is an interesting one, Scott. You guys are obviously on opposite ends of the spectrum. I kind of see both sides in a way. Like my one critique that I noticed watching a lot of DK last year, as great as he is, he catches. He doesn't always catch the ball with his hands. So I kind of get what you're saying about being an athlete more than a receiver in a way. Like I'm like, why aren't you just snatching that with your claws, your velociraptor claws, where he'll let it hit his body? And that to me is like whatever. As long as you catch the ball, I don't really care. But it's just kind of I don't know.
Bit of a nip.
I want to see, but I want to see that from him, right? Like he has to be hearing that. Yeah, he's got to be hearing that in this offseason. Let's see those hands this year, not just beating people off the line and just out sprinting people. I want to see you actually catch the ball, run crispy routes, like do everything that a wide receiver one does. Like take that from Tyler Lockett, make Tyler Lockett your complimentary player.
Christopher Cole doing some research for us here. I guess he initially said that John Lynch was moved from linebacker to strong safety when Dungy was hired, but then he said Bill Walsh moved him at Stanford. So he has linebacker history. There you go. And I think it was probably a good decision, whoever was in fact the one that made that call.
Yeah.
Of course, we got some James Wilder for the Ring of Honor conversation going on. Benny Zakalauskas back in here. Yep.
I mean, it's hard to leave a guy who had 2 touchdowns in college out of your Ring of Honor, right? Like that's just not easy.
Scott,
I'm just saying, I'm pro James Wilder. I'm just was checking out his case the other day, and I know college is not how we're determining these Ring of Honor inductees, but like 2 touchdowns, it's really something.
Scott's been doing his research, Benny. He's been waiting for you this week.
I have. I knew he was going to chime in. I knew he was going to chime in with the Wilder things here.
Are there other running backs in there? Like, is Warwick Dunn in there yet, or what's going on?
Yeah, like Warwick Dunn should definitely be in there, but no, I don't believe he is.
Is Warwick Dunn still building houses for everyone?
Yeah,
he's like the greatest human on earth.
Yeah, he is, and he is the greatest human on earth.
Yeah, fantastic.
And then Charles Woodson, aka Bowden, getting inducted. I mean, what more can you say about Charles Woodson? I feel like anyone who even hates the Raiders or has hated the Packers, like I feel like everyone respects Charles Woodson. Like there's no Charles Woodson haters out there. At least I don't believe there is. And if you are, then like raise your hand, but I don't expect to see many hands.
I feel like as a player and a guy, he has as universally high acceptance rate as anyone that's played in the last 20 years. Seriously, like you said, Carl, who doesn't like Charles Woodson?
Yeah.
He's so fun to watch, like so electric. Obviously an unbelievable defender, but like he could get up and stop the run. He could get to the quarterback. He did everything and for so many years too, right? Like to be at that high level as a cornerback for so long, like unbelievable. Obviously, I have an incredible soft spot. He was my first favorite player, really, like my first favorite guy at Michigan. Desmond Howard won the Heisman in '91, but I was probably a little bit too young for that. But that '97 Michigan team, undefeated, split the national championship. He's playing both sides of the ball. He's returning kicks. He's literally almost beat Ohio State by himself. And then, he had the signature moment in the Rose Bowl game against Ryan Leaf in Washington State. It's just he's
the pick, right?
The pick in the end zone,
or whatever.
Which is so funny because I rewatched a little bit of that game over the weekend, and the camera is so bad. Like, you can barely see what's happening because people are standing up in the stands, and like it's all about that perfect shot from the back of the end zone, which was luckily captured and what everybody goes to when they actually show that play. But the actual live thing, you can barely even make out what happened. But that pick was so huge. And then there's also something to be said about the guys who win the Heisman, and he famously beat out Randy Moss and Peyton Manning to win that Heisman, and then actually be that good in the NFL, right? Like, it isn't just a foregone conclusion that everything translates. And look at those three guys. Like, what a trio in terms of pro football acumen after doing that in college, right? Like, just so impressive.
Absolutely. So with that, we have a good friend of the show in the waiting room, someone Bucs Report followers are very familiar with. I want to make sure I don't mess up this overlay, which I probably will. So just bear with me here, folks. Let's see the best way we can do this.
Hey,
JCA, what's good, my man?
what's going on, guys? How we doing?
How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Just out here. We're almost there. I mean, training camp is in full swing. We've got our preseason game in 5 days now. Hey, the season is upon us, guys.
5 exactly. And I know you've been spending some time at training camp. I'm not sure if you were down there today, but I know you have been, and I know you're very in tune with everything going on. You got any big? I don't want you to ask you to unveil anything significant, but like, what's jumping out at you? Just to ask a broad question, Josh.
Oh man, it's the team. I mean, they brought back all 25 starters last year. You look at special teams, offense, defense, and you can just tell that they're hitting the ground running this year. Like, there's no halfway through the season. Tom's got to get the playbook down. The defense has got to gel a little bit, find their chemistry. Their chemistry is found. The offense is clicking. I mean, they've had their tough days and whatnot, but I mean, look at the defense they're going up against. Arguably, definitely a top 5 defense in the league. One of the best defenses against the rush. The cornerbacks and secondary are just coming along as well as everyone had hoped. So they're not going up against any slouches, but just the fact that, this team looks ready to go. And unlike last year in the opener against the Saints game where, they still look pretty good. You got some catches here, O.J. Howard making a big catch and Tom Brady going for the first touchdown, on a running play and et cetera, et cetera. It looks like someone needs to pray for the Cowboys right now. That's all I got to say. Pray for the Cowboys, even if you're a Bucs fan, because
this is just music to Bucs fans' ears, right? Like, that's like a lack of complacency. Like you said, Brady doesn't have to learn the playbook. We're just ready to go, and it sounds like the hunger is there already. Like, that is exactly what you're looking for from this training camp from a defending champ, right?
Yeah, and they're saying all the right things. Last year was in last year. Antoine Winfield, I'm not even taking out my ring. I'm not looking at it. I'm not going to wear it. It's tucked away somewhere. So, I mean, they're truly embracing the fact that last year was last year, this year is this year, and they're not focusing on anything else. I mean, you look at the way that a lot of these players have been in Todd Bowles system. This is their second or third year in the system, and on defense, their ability to go out there and play. And this is something I asked the guys last year in their second season, and I asked Antoine Winfield was asked as well. How do you feel going into your second season? How do you feel going into your third season? And the consensus is, we know our roles, we know our assignments. This is going to allow us to play freer, faster, and hopefully be able to make more turnovers, more impact plays, sacks, fumbles, etc. Because they're not thinking about, okay, what am I doing on this play? What am I doing on that play? It's just they know what they're doing, and they know the liberties they can take within the scheme as well. I can lean over this way a little bit more and get a pick. Try to get a pick this way instead of playing it safe and making sure I'm just getting the tackle. I can kind of So there's going to be liberties taken, I think, especially by the secondary to create a lot more turnovers. And you're seeing it too in camp already as well, just the different alignments they're using on the defensive line to get a guy like Joe Tryon involved, to get swing JPP out into the middle where he's a better interior rusher and swing, what we saw in the Super Bowl, Vita Vea outside. And there's just a lot of different looks and a lot of different things. And it's mostly vanilla, but they're definitely trying some different things out to see, okay, how can we get the best 5 rushers on the field? How can we get the best, this on the field? And, they had one play where they had, I think it was Vita Vea, JPP, Shaq Barrett, Joe Tryon, and Will Golston all on the field at the same time.
Oh my!
With one safety in the back. So those guys are coming for you. You better have a good line to get the ball out quick. That's all I got to say.
Someone might have to throw some cold water on Colin up here. Are you okay? Are you like your face is turning red? It's like you're at the gown or something right now. This is unreal.
Yeah, it's like my face goes red. It makes me feel like I'm in Tampa, even though I'm in Canada.
Yeah.
Josh, we all know Todd Bowles isn't a guy who's going to be complacent this year. So him having the continuity of the roster, all that's going to do is give him the comfortability to get a little more creative, because that's what he loves to do. And it sounds like that's what's happening. I mean, they could like, we haven't talked much about having the possibility of having Tryon, Barrett, and JPP on the field at the same time. Like, you know what I mean? Like you said, kicking JPP inside just to give a different look. Like, damn, that's
I definitely think they do that. Yeah, I definitely think we'll see a lot of Joe Tryon. I mean, of course, this is before a preseason game, and I don't want to, preface. I want to preface that before, but he looks the real deal. First of all, up and close, he looks like an action figure. The guy's got muscles in all the right places. He's giant. He's jacked. And then you watch him play, and I mean, he hasn't got as many reps on one-on-ones as I'd like to see, but he's winning a lot of them. He's showing a lot of variety of moves. The other day on Sedarius Hutchinson, he did like a spin move type deal, and would have got to the quarterback if they could touch the quarterback. Of course, it's hard to judge in training camp. Especially the edge rushers. Edge rushers and running backs, very difficult to judge, because a lot of the times they're pulling up. Like there's been some would be sacks, or for sure, I mean, the eye test, you can tell that would be a sack, but without really knowing, because they're pulling up at the last minute, they're not, because, the last thing you want to do in a BA training camp practice is hit the quarterback. So, they're pulling up a little bit. So you're not really getting to see the full brunt, the full force of what they're doing. That's why one-on-ones are really, really good too as well. Today I was not out there, but if you read the training camp report that we put out, he blew right by Seton, like just ate his lunch real quick. So, and you heard BA the other day. He's given problems to Tristan Wirfs. He's given problems to Donovan Smith. So it's an encouraging sign. And I think they'll definitely find unique ways to get him in there, even more just as a sub rusher, but different packages to get, as you said, to get all 3 of those rushers on the field at the same time. And Anthony Nelson's he's looked all right. He's had a couple would be sacks, and he's actually looked better as a pass rusher, and it's something that he said he's been working on to improve. So this is his first full off season too. I mean, you got to think the first year was injured, the second year was taken from COVID. So he's putting some things together, and it looks like he's got a firm grip on that 4th spot, especially with Cam Gill and Quentin Bell missing a few days of practice over the last couple of days.
That's really good to hear. And talking about Tryon, I mean, sounds like Shaq Barrett even just decided to throw out the name Bradley Chubb from his days in Denver, being a guy that he reminds him of. I mean, that's big praise coming from Shaq, right? We don't mind hearing that.
No kidding.
You were talking about the secondary, and I agree that's going to be some of the more interesting developments as this year goes on and as we get closer and closer to kickoff. I'm curious, like I'm hearing Mike Edwards looks like just a very dynamic player out there. And I know Whitehead's was on the COVID list. I'm not sure if he was removed or activated yet, or if he's on it currently. But regardless, like between him and Jordan Whitehead, I mean, there's not that big of a difference if Edwards is playing at this level. And I'm curious what you think, how things are going to shake out. Is it going to be kind of a rotation between Edwards and Whitehead? Like, what are your projections in terms of the safety group specifically? Obviously, Winfield's going to be on the field, but
yeah, the safety group is very interesting to follow because, especially with the transition of Ross Cockrell being cross-trained there, it is very, very deep right now. You have guys like Mike Edwards, who's your 3rd safety, who could definitely start on another team somewhere. In a normal year, if they weren't going for back-to-back championships, you might look to see a guy like that traded, or a guy like Whitehead traded in his final year of his deal, just to recoup some of that assets if you're not going to re-sign him. But Whitehead's off the COVID. He's been off for about a week and a half now. He's looked good. He's been a turnover machine. Guy's been delivering, Whitehead hits, big hits. He's made a bunch of interceptions so far. The positions they play are so different because Edwards, while he can play a little bit of a strong, he's more of a free, he's more of a roamer type of guy who, he's the ball hawk. And going all the way back to college, that's what he's been. It will be interesting to see what they do. They've definitely already had looks with 3 safeties on the field, with Edwards, Whitehead, and Winfield on the field at the same time. So it's going to be interesting to see how they toy around and what Todd Bowles decides to do, because he's got the flexibility to do it. So it's, Whitehead plays a different role, but with Devin White's ability to, be that sideline to sideline run stuffer on the line, rush the, it kind of takes away a little bit what Whitehead does, because he's kind of more of that older school safety. So maybe they'll see some packages where you have, Devin White playing that ipso facto, hybrid dime, safety linebacker role that we've seen some defenses employ, and getting Edwards out there. It's, but I mean, even you go back to Ross Cockrell, who's your number 4 cornerback, and for purposes on the cornerback depth chart right now, especially in camp, no one's separated themselves. You have the big 3. You got Cockrell, and who's playing a majority of safety, and no one after that. Antonio Hamilton, I guess, would be the guy that I would put there as a 5th cornerback, just because of his special teams prowess, which is what you want, because you look at Ryan Smith last year was your 5th cornerback. He played 2 snaps all season long. So, with Antonio Hamilton's special teams ability and his, last year he played every game for the Kansas City Chiefs, including the Super Bowl, as a special teamer. So that's a guy. Plus, he's been out there in the first team units. That's probably a guy who's bound to most likely, barring injury, barring sudden collapse, be your 5th guy. You go to that safety position with Ross Cockrell being able to kind of play here, play there. It allows you to have flexibility on game day, even though I do think they keep 4 true safeties, and right now that'd be Javon Hagan, who has looked pretty good. He started off at free safety in training camp, looked pretty good. Now he's moved over to strong safety, learning another position, going back to Ohio where he was undrafted out of. He played a little bit of strong, a little bit of free. So, he's getting that cross-training, as well as Cockrell's getting that cross-training from corner to safety. He's getting from free safety to strong safety. They sent him on a couple blitzes, had a big hit the other day against Tyler Johnson. So that's safety, cornerback position, the whole secondary, besides the big 3 on the starters and second in the cornerback room, and the starters in the safety room, and then you got Ross Cockrell behind that. It's a question mark.
Sounds like it's kind of a theme there along that defense, is just versatility and interchangeability, and being able to diversify your looks, like we talked about with the front 4. I mean, that's going on in the back end too. It's just more tools to tinker with for Bowles.
Oh, absolutely.
And you'd rather have more, and you just not more prepared, or that much more prepared for different offenses with all this flexibility, all these different looks they can have on defense. That's fantastic news. I mean, like Bucs fans must be just salivating hearing that sort of thing coming out of training. I mean, that's fantastic.
Oh yeah, I mean, they did a great job at not just retaining a lot of their starters, but a lot of their depth pieces.
Depth as well, yeah.
I mean, going back, and you can pull the tape from when I was back with BR, I said one of the biggest signings I thought was Ross Cockrell, and that was before he's been arguably the best safety in camp as a cornerback, just because of his ability. He came in last year having 42 career starts, a couple of them against the Bucs when he was with the Panthers, including a pick 6 in London on Jameis Winston. So, he's a guy who's been around the league, who's got some starts, and I think just having that type of guy there, in break glass in case of emergency. If Carlton Davis needs to miss a game, you have that veteran presence there. You signed him for 2 years, which I thought it was a great deal. I thought it was one of the best signings of the offseason. And then you cross-train him at safety. Now that's just icing on the cake. Now it just seems that much better.
Do we still count pick 6s against Jameis as a pick 6? Or is that like more of a pick 4, pick 3? Now, I don't know. Just for the record, but let's clear it up.
I think it's just a regular interception at this point.
You didn't score? What what happened?
Not just throw a pick. Did they score?
Yeah, exactly. Did the ref get in the way? Yeah. Hey, Josh, if we could just want to flip over to the other side of the ball for a second. I'm just fascinated by this receiving core in Tampa. The guys, I mean, all of them are a bit different. You got Godwin, Evans, and Brown, who almost any team in the NFL would like to have as their top guy. What's the general rapport between those three top guys? And and just if you could speak to the competitiveness and how that all shakes out personality wise and kind of what you expect from them.
Oh, they're the best unselfish group in the league. I mean, these guys aren't going to be crying over touches. Let's face it. Does Mike Evans want to get another 1,000-yard season? Of course he does. Does Chris Godwin want to get 100 receptions? Of course he does. Does AB want to prove to everybody, hey, I'm back, I'm AB, and cash in next year, whether it's with the Bucs, if Godwin goes, or if Godwin stays, or if he just goes to another team and gets one big payday? Of course he does. These guys are competitive. They're hungry, but they're also team first, and they also with Tom Brady, who implements that and says, hey, it's about the team. Let's accomplish our team goals, and along the way, if we can accomplish some of the individual goals or, incentives, accolades, such as AB getting his 45 catches last year over Ronald Jones getting his 1,000 yards, then let's get that. Let's do that. Let's make that happen. But the story really, I think, is, the guys who aren't going to make the team or the guys, the bottom three of the roster, because Evans is in midseason form. The guy's catching everything. Carlton Davis, in my mind, is a top 10 cornerback, maybe even top 5 cornerback in the league. I think he's that good. I think he's obviously we know he's a lockdown. I could list off the name of guys that he's locked down: Julio, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, etc., Devontae Adams, etc. Devontae Adams has 6 catches for 64 yards. I don't care who you are. That's a good game against Devontae Adams.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, you're going up against him every day in practice, and the Bucs say it best: iron sharpens iron. So you got some of the best wide receivers going against some of the best secondary, and it's just making the team better as a whole. Chris Godwin is still running crisp routes all over the place. Antonio Brown looks if you heard what BA said today in his press conference, he looks like he did 5-6 years ago. He's had this knee surgery for a while. He's had it, and he looks amazing out there. His energy level that he brings, there's just the balls that he's bringing in and he's catching, and the fact that he's getting on himself when he's not making plays as well. I was there one camp, and he dropped the ball, or it was just out of his hands or something like that, and he started yelling at himself on the sideline. I was like, what are you gonna do? But he was like, you can't waste an opportunity. You can't waste the rep out there. Yelling at himself, like, what are you doing? You can't waste a rep. Every rep counts. Every rep matters. And that just shows you. This is week 1 of preseason.
Yeah.
We got locked in, and he's continuing to get better and better in his relationship with Tom Brady. As we know, go back to the Super Bowl, ran the wrong route. Tom Brady found him anyways.
Yeah.
The relationship is going to be something to monitor. But, Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, Jalen Darden, Jaden Mickens, Travis Johnson, there's going to be receivers that aren't going to make this team. They're going to go somewhere else.
Justin Watson.
Just to a lesser extent because he's on PUP right now. He might not. I don't know if they'll place him on IR. The fact that they didn't already tells me that they're going to keep him through the preseason and keep him on the PUP list, and then revisit it maybe in mid-November, late November, if they can take him off or if they need him, and if the special teams prowess is something that they've been missing. But yeah, the list of guys you have that aren't going to make the team is impressive itself. Jaden Mickens has shown up as a wide receiver, and every single day, he's been making catches and making plays. The other day, I'm standing on the in the end zone where they're walking into the locker room, and he's talking to one of the other wide receivers, and he goes, "Man, I had 11 reps on one-on-one on 11 on 11s. Man, I had 11 reps, but I had 2 mental errors." And he's like, "Yeah, I dropped this one," and So these are players who aren't coming off the field, and those were 9 good reps too. They're not focused on, hey, I made this spectacular play. I burnt this dude deep. They're saying, man, I messed up those 2 reps. I messed up those 2 plays. And it just shows you, and I've heard that throughout the players, how focused they are to getting better and making sure that they're doing the best they can. So, it's going to be hard for them to cut some of these wide receivers. Like Jaden Mickens, I think, is really on the bubble right there. If they don't keep 7 wide receivers, Like, he's going to get scooped up probably.
So fast.
So yeah.
Like, he's been absolutely lights out. And again, caveat, quotation marks, whatever you want to say. We haven't seen a preseason game. This is all in pads. This is all without really live tackling. They did a little bit of a live tackle the other day down in the goal line red zone area. But, I got to see it first. But so far, without pads, just going one up against, they've looked really good.
Hey, what are you seeing from the tight end group? O.J. Howard coming back from injury. Do you have any opinions on the tight end group and what you're expecting from them this season?
Gronk is Gronk. He's going to be your blocking tight end. But, yeah. He's still an amazing wide receiver, too. Cam Brate just came off the PUP, so we'll get a look at him. I don't think he'll play in the preseason game, my personal opinion. I think he's going to need a little bit more time to get into football shape. Speaking of football shape, O.J. Howard, a guy who needs to get into football shape still. He looks good out there catching some things. Has a few drops as well. Yeah. He's clearly recovered from his Achilles, but he's clearly not at the pace and at the speed that we're accustomed to seeing O.J. Howard. I don't think it's a lingering effects. I just think, again, it's just, he spent the first week of training camp watching. The heat is brutal out there. Just getting back into football shape, running routes, getting back into the hang of things and everything like that. I think he'll be fine.
Is it mental with O.J. Howard, do you think?
No, I don't think it's mental. I just think it's just getting back into football shape and everything like that. It was a couple drops are what we've come to expect from O.J. Howard, and he's going to get an earful. But, one thing I have noticed, and I've got my notes right here from practice, is he's been spending every day that he's been out there on the jugs machine after. Antoine Winfield every day on the jugs machine. Antonio Brown every day on the jugs machine. Travis Johnson, nice. A bunch of different other players on the jugs machine after practice, just going out there catching 100 balls, 200 balls. So it's something that it will come. I'm not worried about it. Tanner Hudson's been catching nearly everything thrown his way. He's making it really, really hard for the Bucs to decide if they want to keep 4 tight ends or not. And it's one of these things where tight ends are so scarce in the league that I don't know if they cut him, he'll pass through waivers. They might have to do something like keep him and do like a wink nod deal with like someone like Steve McClendon or someone like at the bottom of the roster, like, hey, we're going to cut you, but then we're going to bring you right back. It's just like a veteran like that who won't have to go through waivers just because, if that's the route they want to go. Now, I'm not sold they're going to keep 4 tight ends on the roster, but if that's the route they want to go, Terrell Adams has looked pretty good. Daquan Hampton, who was signed, he's been all right. Cody McElroy has strung together a few good practice, but he's a practice squad player. So, it's really, if they want to keep 4 tight ends, it's down to Tanner Hudson. And then that's the game they got to play. Do they choose to waive him? Do they choose to, do a wink nod with somebody, keep him on the roster, and then after week 1, when he doesn't have to go through waivers or whatnot, just, sneak him back on the practice squad? Or did they say, hey, look, we can get a 5th round pick, 4th round, 6th round pick for this guy. Yeah. Let's move on from him now and recoup some draft assets or whatever. Because the team, we're going to have a bunch of free agents next year. We're not getting any younger to try to infuse a little bit of talent in there. It's going to be interesting.
If OJ does prove to be healthy and, like you said, I wouldn't, as long as he's standing upright and trying to put the work in, I'm not going to judge him for a bit coming off an injury like that. Like, let him get his football sense back. Do you expect the Bucs to operate Byron Leftwich and Bruce Arians and whoever's calling the shots there to operate out of a 12-man personnel a little more frequently this year?
Definitely. Yeah, especially in the red zone for sure. You look at the guys you can put out there. They had I'm not even sure if this is real because I'm still studying X's and O's, like diagramming plays and stuff like that. 13-man personnel. I don't know if that's real, but they had a play out there with O.J. Howard was out there, Tanner Hudson, who would most likely be in a game situation, replaced by Cam Brate, and Rob Gronkowski out there with Mike Evans in the red zone on the 5.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, good luck stopping that.
With Giovanni Bernard out there, who, surprisingly, Giovanni Bernard is a better runner than most people think. Last year, he still put up 400 yards running behind a terrible Bengals offensive line. Still, a great pass blocker, one of the best pass blockers. So if you have him, you spread those guys out wide, and you got, the big guys running like little routes, and you got Gio sitting there for a little wheel route dump off. There's just, it's going to be hard to. If everyone's healthy, everyone's clicking, everything's going the way it should be, it's really going to be hard. Some of the matchups they can put out there for teams to stop. And that's why I told you before we even started getting into this, praying for the Cowboys, because I just don't see them being able to match up with some of some of the matchups, some of the schemes that Byron and BA and Tom are going to be able to come up with.
And I'm hoping that we see more play action and more pre-snap motion as well.
Definitely.
It sounds like, I know you guys have reported, it was either you or John Ledyard over at Pewter Report, but just discussing, the amount of they're seeing that in training, seeing more of that play calling. And I'm personally hoping that's something I was calling for, along with a lot of people who followed the Buccaneers. We're calling for a little bit more pre-snap movement and motion and deception to, just give your guys a leg up. Don't just depend purely on them lining up and beating their guy. You got to give them an advantage as well. Are you thinking that's going to, because, they made that adjustment last year and the results spoke for themselves around the time that Leftwich decided to implement that more. Do you think that's something that's going to carry over this season that we're going to see a lot more of?
Yeah, for sure. Especially play action. The numbers don't lie, right? BA is not a huge analytics guy, but when it comes to sports science and what works, he's going to listen to the numbers guys. And they're going to say, hey, this percent of the time, I don't have the percentage, but I know we've got some great articles up by Jack Barrett and by Paul Atwell breaking down the numbers, exactly what, play action did for this and for that, and, what, movement, pre-snap movement did as well. But, that's, it worked. And there's even the eye test, if you're not an X's and O's guys, you can tell that it worked. And it's something that Tom Brady does a lot. You have 3 really solid runners, 4 if you count Keyshawn Vaughn, who I think is going to have a pretty decent year this year, working on all 4 special teams units. So he's going to get some plays drawn up for him as well, because he's going to be active on game days. It's just going to add a different advantage and wrinkle to this offense that you didn't see the first half of the season. So, it worked well. You want to continue making sure it's working. And I definitely think, from seeing it so far in training camp, they're going to implement it in different ways as well.
Great stuff, Josh. I can't thank you enough. If I may ask you one more before we let you get on with your life.
I can do one more from all 3 of you if you guys all have one.
Okay. Well, mine. I want to kind of just focus on this first preseason game because, like you said, 5 days away, August 14th. What are you going to be looking for? Bruce today said that when asked, I guess, about whether we might see Tom Brady, and I expected that to be a hell no. But apparently he says we're going to see everyone in this game. So hopefully it's just a snap or 2. But what are you going to be looking to take away from this game? Like is it going to be position battles at certain key spots? Is it going to be a couple players?
I'm not looking at any of the starters. Like Tom Brady, get out of it. Please hurry up and get out of the game.
Yeah.
Great to see you. Great. Awesome. Mike Evans. Awesome. Wonderful. Good to see you. Get out of the game, please. Because let me watch the special teams. I want to see who's playing on the special teams units, who's doing their assignments right. I want to see the offensive line, defensive line. Let me see. Okay, you got, your best guys on that guy. I want to see those matchups. I want to see tackling. I want to see how, Keyshawn Vaughn does against tackling. I want to see how the linebackers, Joe Tryon specifically, does against an offensive line. Give me the cornerbacks. I want to, because I feel like they've struggled. Let me see what the cornerbacks can do, who's going to separate themselves. But it's mostly special teams. They've got the guys that they know who are going to be on the team, based off what they've done positionally now. That's kind of figured out, unless you have a monstrous, disastrous game at cornerback or at this position or at that position. For the most part, they've got an idea. Okay, we've seen enough of this. We've seen enough of that. We know we want this guy. Now it's on special teams. All right, go again and prove it against on special teams. Show your tackling ability. Make sure you're doing the right things here, right things there. A guy like Nick Leverett, who has been playing all across the line everywhere but center. How does he do it on left tackle when the lights are on, when it's game time? How are these guys going to do? And I want to see Kyle Trask too. I'm interested. Kyle Trask means nothing to me this preseason. Like, people are going to be all up in arms like, oh, Kyle Trask looked like this. Oh, Kyle Trask looked like that. I don't care about Kyle Trask this season. He's a footnote to me. He's not going to be playing next year. He's not going to be playing this year. Sure, I want to see him do well for his development, but he's going to learn more in the classroom. He's going to be learning more in that joint practice game with the Tennessee Titans than he's going to be in any of these preseason games. Yeah, it's nice for him to get some snaps and get some, looks again. Sorry, I just saw the comment Musador sent.
I'll get you.
But it's for me, it's mostly, I want to see special teams. I want to see the backup guys. I want to see what they're going to do against another team other than their own, where they can actually hit and tackle.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the way the draft went, obviously that's a huge priority for this team, right? That's the one area they're not turning over some of those valuable guys. I really want to see Jalen Darden return some kicks, like in live action. Like, you know what I mean? That's something I'm really looking forward to. Because a guy you already talked about a bunch, Mickens, to me, proved to be very serviceable, especially in that Super Bowl and a couple of those postseason games where I thought he was returning the ball quite well. Something Bucs fans have not been used to over the last decade plus. So,
yeah,
Jalen Darden could come in and prove to be effective at the NFL level, returning kicks right away. That'd be a pretty exciting thing to see.
For me, it's more how does he do as a punt returner? I mean, kick returner, you're barely taking kicks out, right?
Yeah.
You're getting more punts, and Mickens was not good in that area. It's 6.6 yards per attempt. So, I mean, that's why I want to see him as a punt returner more as a kick returner. So hopefully they make a lot of punts. We can see him out there.
Yeah.
I jump in here. The running back room. Obviously, it's probably going to be a ton of turnover during the season. But any early favorites for being kind of the bell cow for this team?
It's Rojo. I mean, he's just the best runner, pure runner out of the group. I mean, yeah, he's a liability, somewhat catching the ball. I mean, he's been all right. Yeah, he's certainly a liability in pass protection. But as a pure runner, as a guy who's going to be able to churn out the yards and break out on big plays or do well, even against some stacked boxes, it's going to be Rojo. There's a reason why they were enamored with Travis Etienne and would have probably taken him this year if he fell to him. They're not in love with everybody. It'll be interesting to see what happens after the season. But I think you'll see a lot, and we talked about this on the Friday podcast on Pewter Report. It's going to be a lot of, I think, Rojo and Gio, and Fournette will be sprinkled in here and there, and Vaughn will be sprinkled in here and there. But early going so far, Fournette had another drop pass today, which would have been a big gain. So,
do you get that same feeling that you get from the wide receiver room, that unselfishness as you get from the running back group, or?
Yes and no. I mean, because in the back of my mind, and I know it's last year, and I know, there's some recency bias about playoff Lenny and Super Bowl Lenny, Lombardi Lenny, whatever. But I mean, this is a guy who almost was cut, because he wasn't okay with his role. So how is he going to be? Is he going to be okay if he's the third guy up?
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah, that's
a question, and I'm not sure. Especially because he's going to want to get paid next year, and if he doesn't have the numbers, if he's not putting up if Rojo's getting the yards, but Lenny's getting the touchdowns, that might be one thing. But if it's not happening either way, and he's not out there on third downs, and now he's not out there on short downs because Rojo's a better short down back, to be honest. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I got Rojo being the guy, and Gio probably the second guy, and then both of those guys sprinkled in to keep people fresh. But I think there will be a lot of rotation because you want to keep everyone fresh until the end of the year. It worked great last year, and you had almost nothing from Keyshawn Vaughn and practically nothing from LaShawn McCoy. Well, now you got a guy in Giovanni Bernard who's going to give you some stuff, and the coaching staff. I'm really high as well on Giovanni Bernard, on Keyshawn Vaughn as well. So I think he'll be able to roll in there too. So you'll have all four guys getting some touches to keep everyone healthy, everyone good for the playoffs, and for then the late season rush, because that's the name of the game, to stay healthy. So you don't want to feed someone too much in the beginning of the season to have them wear down.
Yeah, and it's funny too, just comparing and contrasting this team's crop of running backs versus the receivers. The receivers are all proven, and even with a down statistical year like that, wouldn't necessarily sink any sort of free agency for them going forward or anything like that. Yet these running backs all have stuff to prove, right? Like Ronald Jones has been benched by Arians. Fournette, like you said, has been cut. He was the fourth pick. Jacksonville gave up on him. Like, there's still a lot more clawing aspect, I would say, to them as opposed to these receivers. Just, Bo, when you bring up that question about what the room is like, right? It's just probably a completely different dynamic between those two groups on the same side of the ball.
Yeah, and I don't know how you guys don't laugh in the comments because they're probably cracking up. But I mean, they got chips on their shoulders, right? I mean, you're looking at a guy like Leonard Fournette who was cut, and then he was, the guy, the odd man out last year, almost, he wants to go out there and perform. He wants to go out there and improve. You got a guy like Rojo who's never had a 1,000-yard season, who's in a contract here. Both of these guys are in contract. All three of these guys are in contract.
Exactly.
You got Gio, who was with the Bengals for forever. You know, he wants a taste of that for that championship ring. So you know, all these guys have chips on their shoulders, and it's just how they're going to carry those chips, and if it's going to let them affect. You know, running back, I think, is one of the more diva-ish positions sometimes. I know wide receivers get made out to be. But because of the shortness of a running back's career for the most part, they've got to do what they can. They got to be vocal. They got to get their touches. They got to get their, their sleeps. They got to get their contracts because they're not that big usually compared to other positions, and they're not that long, and the wheels start to fall off a lot quicker. Najee Harris, him going back for that senior year, I know had a lot of teams kind of like, oh, how long are we going to get out of this guy? 4 or 5 years? Can we re-sign him afterwards if we're running him into the ground even more? So. I mean, it's difficult to figure out, that whole scheme of things. The good thing is I think that this locker room is strong enough to withstand anything. Both of those guys start going off. I'm comfortable with you and Keyshawn Vaughn leading the way. We're going to bring back TJ Logan or CJ Prosa. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, so both of these guys I think could be starters somewhere else. They're both going to be in a rotation. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, Josh, you have been extremely generous with your time, and I can't thank you enough for that, man. It was nice to finally get you on here. And
absolutely.
If you have any parting words for the Bucs Report audience, whether it's a hater or a fan, you got them all right here at Bucs Report.
Hey, if I've got a couple of haters on here, I got to figure out how to get a couple more, right?
There you go.
So
there you go, my man.
But to everyone, I see like Misador and Christopher Cole and everybody else. Obviously, my beautiful wife. Happy anniversary!
Hey!
Oh wow!
Congratulations!
6 years strong.
Wow!
There you go, man.
Congrats, man.
So I appreciate all y'all. You guys know my story starts here. So appreciate everybody over there. Appreciate you guys. Definitely would love to come back on again if you have me. Not going to promote too hard, but there's my Twitter below me right here at JC Allen NFL. Follow me there. Follow all of my work. I've got a bunch of great articles out. We've got a bunch of great articles out on the site, so definitely check that out. But other than that, guys, it was a pleasure. Whether I do this on here or whether we do it off air or something like that, I'm definitely down to chop it up with you guys for sure. It's been a great time on here, as always, on this platform. But other than that, I'm going to go spend some time with my wife and put the kids to sleep.
There you go, man. Thanks so much.
Thanks, JC.
Absolutely.
See you, buddy.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you.
Another great guest on the Bucs Banter podcast. Love to see it.
Yeah.
Love.
I'm ready to run through a wall for that guy for the Bucs. Seriously though, could you have asked for first of all just better reporting, and second of all, just Colin, what else would you have possibly wanted to get from that as a fan? Seriously,
extremely informative. It's funny. I got a hater in the comments here. And I'm not going to read the comment because I don't want to give it any airtime. But it's like, if you don't appreciate firsthand observations from Bucs training camp and super detailed analysis of position battles from an objective view, then maybe we are clowns, and maybe this isn't the place for you.
A word of advice that I got from Jameis Winston: keep working on y'all podcasts. So,
yeah, exactly.
We'll see you out there. We'll see you in this media stuff.
There it is. But that was great stuff, man. Like, we pretty much covered the preseason just in general, which was one of the things that we wanted to hit on. Awesome stuff from JCA. We've been getting some really good updates regarding Bucs training camp. I feel like we've got a front row seat, so hopefully most of the viewers and listeners are appreciating that as well.
Oh yeah, between him and Evan, these last two, just incredible stuff. So yeah,
for sure.
The dichotomy between the wide receivers and the running backs it just kind of speaks to where the league is going to, where you can kind of tell, right? Like, if you're a wide receiver, the league's never been in a better place. You're just passing the ball all the time. You're making mistakes, but you have a chance to make up for those mistakes. Whereas, I could just see these running backs being at each other's throats. Lenny Fournette going into camp just being in the third spot. There's no way he's happy with that. I just can't imagine.
I'm almost a little surprised to hear that, because it seemed like a pretty definitive stance. Just because of Bruce being that loyal guy and Fournette rallying the troops, I feel like it would kind of be his touches to lose in a lot of ways. But what what Josh said is totally true, and that is Rojo is the most talented runner naturally. Like, you know what I mean? Leonard Fournette isn't separating himself that much as a pass catcher. He was certainly serviceable in the postseason, more than enough to get the job done. But bringing in a guy like Gio Bernard, and then obviously the emergence of Keyshawn Vaughn, hopefully having like a actual rookie season where he can get on the field a little bit more. He's able to catch the ball. So, you know, like it's gonna be a fight. It's gonna be a battle between those guys, and at that position, kind of like that.
Yeah, totally.
For sure.
Like it's nice to have options too, right?
And that was the overarching theme for me for the whole Bucs, training camp and upcoming season. Just the flexibility and the versatility that they're going to have on offense and defense is just unmatched. Like, he's going over the tight ends, and say what you will about OJ Howard, and maybe a little bit injury prone, a little bit underwhelming. He's freaking good, man. And I like Cameron Brate, and Gronk is Gronk, and that's just at the tight end spot.
And Brady likes Cameron Brate.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and if their defense is, because I kept wanting, just, JC was talking, just they're clearly even going to be able to play even more free this year, and more just playing and not thinking, and getting to react and just go and do what you have to do, which is how you need to be to play defense at the highest level, right? You can't be thinking about every single step that you're making. You just do it. You just go. And that sounded like it came through quite clear, like that's what's happening. And guys are stepping up. They're playing against a great offense. The offense is playing against a great defense. It's just, hey, sounds like a great situation. And I don't know. That made me super pumped for the season.
Yeah, I would have liked to ask a little more specifically about KJ Britt and Grant Stewart, who are Grant Stewart, of course, Mr. Irrelevant. KJ Britt, I believe, was 5th or 6th rounder out of Auburn, linebacker. He's likely to make the team, I guess. But I'm excited to see how those guys perform. Like, you can't really tell just like on special teams necessarily, but someone will get us the clips of them, and we'll see how they fare, because that's the area where they need to contribute if they have any hope of making the team. Because Bucs are pretty set at the linebacker position for the most part, so that will be interesting. Lots and lots of good Bucs content that I love. In terms of some like division rivals here, things aren't so peachy over in the Bayou for the New Orleans Saints. I'm not sure whether any of the viewers or listeners or any of you guys saw. Michael Thomas tweeted today. So just to provide a little bit of context, it was reported over the weekend or tail end of last week that because Michael Thomas has just recently undergone surgery on his ankle or his foot or whatever, and he's going to miss a chunk of the start of the regular season. And everyone was kind of like, what? Like, why is this just being announced now? Why is this just happening now? And the report came out stating that Michael Thomas had all but just ghosted the New Orleans medical staff and just everyone when they were trying to kind of, I guess, get this sorted out. So ultimately, the New Orleans Saints, in a media statement, make it seem like, Michael Thomas ghosted him. That's the only reason. We are not stupid or whatever. And then Michael Thomas responded today via Twitter. He said, they tried to damage your reputation. You saved theirs by not telling your side of the story. So
important to note, he wrote that in Comic Sans as well too. So that's where his
one of the more passive
level of maturity. Yeah, level of maturity was that.
Yeah. One of the more passive-aggressive fonts out there, really.
Yeah, seriously. Comic Sans should be just like a segment title for any time we talk about the Saints. Comic Sans. Oh, here's Jameis Winston news on Comic Sans.
Yeah. Comic Sans.
Sean Payton declined comment on the matter. Probably a good decision. But I just got to say, like, Michael Thomas, man, this last 12 months has not been kind to him. You don't see his name mentioned when we're talking top receivers in the game. Going into last season, he was like a bona fide top 5 receiver, an incredible player. I totally have to say, like, he's a hard-nosed, talented football player, and him and Drew Brees had a great connection, at least on the field. But what's going on here is not ideal for the player or the franchise, and I just can't see this possibly going well. I smell a trade request or something in the air on the horizon. Not sure what you guys think about the whole Michael Thomas situation. That
did not look good, and not just because of the font. That sounded like he was really trying to get something off of his chest that he had been buried and thinking about for a while. I don't know. I got to be honest. I didn't quite realize the level of discontent or issue between Thomas and the Saints before kind of doing a little bit of digging today. And I don't know, Colin. I'm with you. Like, it's not good. A trade request seems likely, and then no Drew Brees. I don't know exactly where he's at with the quarterback situation, but that's something completely different than he's had in his career with the Saints, right? It's what an absolute superstar on the market if it becomes known that he's ready to be traded, right?
Yeah, I'd be totally comfortable doing a whole episode on Michael Thomas trade hypotheticals. Just talk about the Saints losing their most talented wide receiver. Wouldn't have a problem with that either.
Yeah. No kidding.
I'm just looking up his contract, and I would normally because I just had a sneaking suspicion he was going to be up soon. So yeah, he's got a potential out in 2022. So most likely he just gets cut at the end of the season.
That would be wild.
Yeah, which is the sweepstakes between Michael Thomas and Devontae Adams both being free agents possibly this offseason would be pretty unreal.
Yeah, well said, Bo. I couldn't agree with you more. So also one of my personal favorite players in the league, Saquon Barkley, was a participant at practice today. So we had touched on Saquon briefly. I think we all appreciate his ability, and we all want to see him on the field. I tweeted out today, the NFL is a better place, a better product when Saquon Barkley is running the football. So that's good to see. You know what I mean? The football doc on Twitter, he likes to break down injuries just from his vantage point on film and kind of give a real take. And I guess he's not like super optimistic, but I mean, I don't really care. Like if you're on the field, that's a good sign. And hopefully Saquon can start the year as getting the ball, playing the game, because look forward to watching him run. And really, we've talked about the preseason, we've talked about training camp, we've talked about the Hall of Fame inductees, we've talked about everything we promised we would, and I think now is a good time for us to ride off into the sunset until our next episode. So I just want to send out a heartfelt thank you to everyone who chimed in, whether good or bad, in the chat this evening. Your participation is essential, and we appreciate it greatly. And please make sure to hit us up, follow us on YouTube, or like and subscribe, follow us on Twitter. That stuff helps us out a great deal. As you can see, Captain Ron is Scott, Bono's Ball is Bo, and we are all collectively Bucs Banter, and we are, again, thankful for having you participate, and we'll catch you on the flip side for the next episode of the Bucs Banter podcast.
Please, thanks everyone.